Hello friends and welcome to bispsolutions.com. My name is Amit with my business partner Tricon Technology. Today I am going to show you how to set up financial module in EPBCS application. So I'll show you live step-by-step way how to build the enterprise planning and budgeting cloud application, and then we configure financial module in it. There are two part of this video tutorial. Today we configure the part 1, and my second part of my video tutorial I'll talk about advanced configuration of financial application. So let's get started. So it will be done in 3 steps. Step 1, we create application. Step 2, I enable financial module, and step 3, I perform various configuration parameter for financial modules. So let's get started. So we start with login up with your planning budgeting cloud service. You define your credentials and your domain name depends upon what kind of license you procured. So in my case, this screen may vary from the license type you have taken. So when I log in, I see I have a planning budgeting cloud service, financial consolidation close management, and tax reporting. I start creating an enterprise application. So there are 3 kind of application. In the previous video, I shown you how to create sample application, sample vision application. Today we see enterprise application. So I would love to give the name as EPBCS, and we define description sample EPBCS application. You continue follow this. I like to start this planning application for starting from 2009 to 2024 for 16 years. Actually, this information you should get from your design document. For example, I'm creating this planning application based on this input sheet. This planning application input sheet talks about different types of expenses and how many years of historical data you like to maintain. So my assumption over here that I like to store 7 years of historical data is to start with. So how many years of historical data you like to maintain? So for example, you like to create for 7 years, so you say 2014 to 2014, 15, 16, 2016, 3 years of historical data. You like to maintain 1 year of current data, 2017, and how many years of future data for forecasting. So start from 2018, 19, 20, 2018 to 2020. Right, so when you start from 2014 to 2020, actually maintain 7 years of data. Similarly, the data file which I created, I have data for 16 years, so I'll select what is your starting month, fiscal month of a given year. It could be January or April or June, depends upon your requirement. And I use the event distribution. This I discussed extensively in my previous video. You can refer this, the same as our creating sample application. I want my EPBCS application should have a multi-currency, so therefore I've chosen yes, and default currency is USD. My plan tab is plan 1, and I keep the reporting cube name same as EPBCS. Click next, and this is a custom screen you get. And if you find everything good, as I see in my screen, 50% of my cube is used for reporting and 50% of the cube is used for data input. If you find everything good, click on create. It takes few seconds to create your application. Compared to your on-prem application, you could go back to Space and see how the application outline is being built. Here you don't have any interface to Space, you communicate to the planning through browser only. So let's wait for a few minutes, and then once this application will be created, I resume to the session. Well, so application got created, and the next step, I'm going to configure financial module. So step second, you enable financials. So I'm going to enable financial and all its sub procedures. So in order to enable financials, um, you can go to configuration section under application, configuration or configure, and these are the possible modules available. You see you have financial, workforce, human resource, capital expense and project financial planning, and strategic module is a new recently added. I select financial module and I click on enable features. Now you have a list of parameters you can define when you want to perform financial module, what element it should consist of. So I start with revenue forecasting, and you have option for product or services. I select product. You can select both of them as well. For expense forecasting, I like to project my expenses for marketing, travel and facilities. You can select based upon your requirement. As of now, I need marketing, travel and facilities expenses. Income statement, I like to create projected income statement for gross profit, and I like to continue use my simple addition. You can also use EBITDA, which is earning before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization as well. Balance sheet, I like to use balance sheet for driver based. So actually we are doing driver based planning, and therefore I've chosen driver based balance sheet, which is quite dynamic. Based upon your parameter, the calculation take place. And cash flow, I'll go for indirect cash flow. In a subsequent example, I show you the reason I've chosen indirect cash flow. So we would be rendering entire cash flow statement automatically. For the sake of simplicity, I don't select rolling forecast and weekly planning and go on. This module allow you to add new custom dimension or rename your existing dimension. So because I've chosen product, therefore you see there's one product dimension added. I like to also add additional dimension called market. So I type a new custom dimension called market and add over here. When everything done, I quickly cross check. I've chosen product, market, travel facilities, income statement, gross profit, and balance sheet as driver base and cash flow direct. And then I've added a custom defined dimension called market and product. Right here, market, product, indirect cash flow, driver base, balance sheet, gross profit, income statement, marketing, travel facilities, and product based revenue model. Everything is good. You can click on enable, and it will in turn take few seconds. And once it is done, we'll find our financial module appeared into your desktop screen. Let's wait for a few seconds and resume the session. Perfect. So it got enabled. In order to look at the updated changes, we need to log off and log in. So I log off the existing session and log in again. And we would be able to see the new changes already implemented. Fine. So you see there's a financial module available in your desktop. We are done with two steps. Now we are at third step. The next step, we are going to load metadata into our financial module. I created a sample metadata. We load metadata and then we load data, and followed by we would configure variable and configure planning, budgeting, forecasting. And the final step will go for project assumption, and this is subject to your project. There is no standard value associated with this. So let's go. Step first, we load metadata, and in order to load metadata, we go to configuration section. Once again, application, configuration, select your module, the financial module, and I'm going to load metadata for entity, product, and market. Start with entity, click on this and select your file. So I store this metadata into my local system. When you are doing hands-on, you can find this information into your shared location. Select your metadata, it's a comma separator. You can right click and preview it as well. So in a subsequent session, I'll show you how to create metadata file, validate, and import. Once import is done, you can see the green symbol. Well, right now you can refresh your database now or you can defer it. I prefer to defer this, and the moment it got imported, you see the green flag appeared over here which says the import took place successfully. In addition to this, I'll show you how it appears in a job as well. So I import in the same fashion market and product as well. So let's import market, validate so that we can keep track of the changes, and import. And again, I'm going to defer my metadata load later on. And finally is your product. Validate and import. So you see the green flag says import done successfully. Alternatively, you go to job and you see the respective job got created. So there are 3 import and 3 validate, right? For entity, market, and product respectively. Once it is done, the next step will change dimension and forecast setting so that we can define what is start period and end period of your scenario dimension. So planning and forecasting preparation, and you can define what is the plan and forecast cycle of your application. So this information would also get from your design document. So well, if the current month, if you look at your design document over here, if current month is September 2017, therefore if your forecasting is monthly, then it should start from October 2017. If you're doing yearly forecasting, so it should be October to December 2017. Similarly, what is your budget plan or plan activities? So what is your planning cycle, budgeting cycle, and forecast cycle is subject to your organization. So I assume I'm doing budgeting for quarterly. So you have, look at your time hierarchy. Budgeting we do for quarterly and forecasting we do for monthly. So this input you get from business and accordingly you design your structure. And for how many years of budgeting you do, assume you do forecasting for 1 year, 1 year forecast, and you do 5 years budget, or you may have 5-year forecast and 5-year budget. Okay, in this example I'll take, first you take plan, define the starting year, select the current fiscal year, 2017, and the period to control the budget data. So well, I don't have data file for 2017 starting from. The data file which I prepared is for 2015. So ideally you should create a data file. You should create the year based upon your current year, but in this example for demonstration purpose I use FY15 and starting from June, and this is for 10-year planning, right? So 15 and 16 it would be monthly, 17 is quarterly, and FY18 to FY24, 16 year, it would be yearly. The same you need to define for forecast. For forecast, once again I select for 10 years, current year is FY15 and starting period is June. So For forecast, I select monthly for FY 15 and 16. 17 I want quarterly, and 18 onwards I want it should be yearly. So we selected of plan and forecast. Click on save. We are done with this. There are a couple of minor or small application setting. You can do it now or you can do it later. Under setting, for example, I like to do a number setting, 1000 separator comma. So how you want the numbers to be represented, like some organization or some countries, the representation is always done in terms of 100,000. Some countries like Asian countries, the representation is done is it is called 1 lakh. In America and Europe it is called 100,000. So what is your 1000 separator? You define over here separator and your decimal operator, dot or comma. Okay, so based upon your requirement you can change these parameters. Numbers formatting, save, and finally we go for variable setting. So when you configure your financial planning, you have got option to set some variable value. Some variables got created by default as part of your application design. So you select the variable. I use USD as one of my currency, and then you define entity. So for which entity you like to set this variable. I'm going to set this variable for total entity. So I've given some default parameter. I continue to use it. You can set for entire entity or specific entity. So I select over here sales US. Reporting currency is USD, and scenario I would do it for plan. So there you find the moment you create a financial planning application, you find there are predefined dimension data form gets created. I'll show you right after this. So I like to create scenario for, I select planning scenario, and this OEM OEP is the default member. I mean these are the member comes along with while you create application. Similarly I create for version. So I create working version, define the value of my version, year, choose an FI 16. For current year you can select FI 17. Account, expense account, define your operating expense, operating expenses, and finally what is the expense driver. This dimension member you find gets created automatically as part of your application design. Expense driver for form. Click on save. You can actually go back and check all this dimension. In fact I should have shown you first. So if you go to home page, there is an option called your application. You can go and access from navigation, dimension, and these dimensions appear automatically. You see there's a node for revenue, expenses, income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. In addition to this, you also find there are predefined data forms got created, and you can see this under your data, the predefined data form. Although you won't be able to open many of them because we need to still do some configuration setting, but you see they're nicely organized in terms of financial analysis, cash flow, balance sheet, expenses. There's a pre-built template with best practices. Finally, I'll import data so that we would be ready to play around with our application. So in order to import data, you can go to application setting, select your application. You can load it right away, or you can schedule as well. So you have both options. So these are the dimension structure you have. I supposed to refresh my database queue before I import it. So I refresh my database. It takes few seconds. The refresh is done. Alternatively, you could refresh your application directly from overview, your action, and refresh database. So you can use any one of these options. Module specific or entire application. File. So refresh is done. Let's do a final step. We import data. So there's an option called action. You can import data from here, and I'm going to use some sample data to import. Click on create. I'm going to import from my local system. You can schedule it and load it. My source type is planning and it's a comma separator. This is my import data file. We can schedule this as a job. I'll show you in a subsequent session how to schedule as a job, validate and import. And finally, you can see the status of your import under your job. So click on job. You see the validation took place successfully and import. So that's the last step. Once data got imported, you want data to be rolled up to the parent. So I would run this roll up rule twice, one for planning and one for forecasting. And finally, I'll calculate actuals. So go to home page and there is an option called rule. You can invoke rule and invoke this rule roll up and define all the parameter for which year. You can define, I want this calculation to be taken place for FI 15 and 16. Either you can type or you can select directly. Currency for USD. I like this roll up to be done for entire entity and plan. I would rerun this roll up again for forecast. I did it for plan. I do it for forecast as well. Same for USD. And forecasting, I would do it for FI 15, sorry. And finally, I calculate my actuals. So for which entity you like to calculate actual? For entire entity, total entity. For year, I would run it for 14-15. And I'll run for level 0 member of my time dimension. So select year total, and from the function you can select descendant, ancestor, parent. I select level 0 member. That's it. Launch it, and now you would be able to see your numbers are roll up to the parent. So this is done with the first step of setting a financial application. In the second step, I'll show you how to define your driver values and customize your financial. So thanks for watching this video. Should you have any question, please feel free to write to bispsolutions.com. Thank you.